It's like 7 o'clock.
I have 7.
Okay. Evening, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the February 9th meeting of the East Hempfield Township Planning Commission. I'd invite you to join me in opening the meeting with the pledge to the flag. I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
This evening, we have one regular member who is absent, so I would ask that Mr. Spangler, would you serve as a voting member this evening, please? And Mr. Bowlby, you're certainly welcome to join in the conversation. All right, the first item on the agenda for this evening is the taking action on the minutes from our last meeting, which was on January 12th. Does anybody have any corrections, additions?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve the minutes as presented.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Rohr, seconded by Mrs. Byrne, that we approve the minutes as submitted from the January 12th meeting. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I'll abstain.
So that would be 6-0 on 1, right? 6-0-1. All right, the first action item for this evening is Schreiber Pediatrics at 625 Community Way. A sketch plan and request to waive the preliminary plan.
Hi, good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. My name is Brian Cooley with DC Gone Associates, representing Schreiber Pediatric tonight. As was referenced here for the sketch plan and the preliminary plan waiver request, I'll just give a brief overview of the sketch plan and the waiver request and answer any questions that the Planning Commission has. So the project is Schreiber Pediatric located at 625 Community Way. On the sheet, Good Drive is to the north, Community Way to the south, and Homestead Village is on the left-hand side of the page. The property is in the Community Business Center zone. Schreiber Pediatric is proposing a 5,100 square foot building addition. It's located on the north side of the existing building. That building addition will be a 3-story building addition. In addition to the building addition, they are proposing a sensory garden, which is located adjacent to the building. This will be an outdoor sensory garden space, which will have some type of a trellis over top of it. Currently, there's 125 parking spaces. You can see on the right-hand side of the screen, we're proposing additional parking That'll bring the total parking to 161 spaces. There is a proposed sidewalk which leads from the proposed building addition to the existing parking area. And the site is served by public sewer and water. We did receive a zoning hearing board decision approval back in October. That was for a building expansion, for a non-conforming building expansion within the community business center zone. We do have the David Miller letter, which is dated January 27th, and they do recommend approval of the preliminary plan waiver request. I do have two renderings, which I'd like to share with the Planning Commission tonight. Cindy, can you bring up the one? I think it says main entrance. So this will give you an idea of obviously the three-story structure on the right-hand side is the building addition. You can see on the left, that's the existing Schreiber building. That's only 1 story. Again, this building addition will be 3 stories. And then you can see in the foreground is the proposed sidewalk connection. The rest of all the building, there's going to be some interior renovations, but for the most part, the existing building will remain as is. And then Cindy, can you go to the next one? And then this is the Century Garden Outback. This will be used by the patients of Schreiber Pediatric for outdoor activities. Does the Planning Commission have any questions for myself related to the sketch plan or the preliminary plan waiver request?
Does this expansion infringe onto the detention or stormwater management system that's there now?
Yes, it does. So
what is the idea there for how to replace it or modify it?
yes, there's, Cindy, can you go back to the sketch plan? On the top left of the screen, that's where the existing detention basin is. In addition, on the north of the existing parking lot is an existing rain garden. So there are 2 facilities which are impacted by this development. So the existing basin on the left-hand side is being impacted, but there is still volume within that basin based upon the revised grading. The rain garden is being expanded to accommodate for the additional parking area. So that will be modified as part of this plan.
Does anybody in the audience have any questions or input on this plan? Any further discussion from the commission? If not, then I'm ready for a motion on the waiver of preliminary plan request.
One quick question, Jim, if I
Yep.
may. So the driveway entrance points are not changing in any way?
They are not, nope. No, there's 2 points of access off Community Way, and those will remain.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we recommend to the supervisors waiver of the preliminary plan, subject to staff and engineer comments.
I'll second that.
Okay, I have a motion by Mr. Rohr, seconded by Mr. Detter, that we recommend approval of the preliminary plan waiver for Schreiber Pediatrics, subject to staff and engineer comments. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? That would sound unanimous, 7-0.
Thank you so much for your time tonight.
Welcome. Next item is the U-Haul, Americo Real Estate Company, zoning text amendment for the Community Business Center zoning district.
Good evening. I'm Claudia Shank. I'm an attorney with McNeese, Wallace and Nurek, and I'm here this evening on behalf of Americo Real Estate Company, which is a real estate subsidiary of U-Haul. I'm joined this evening by Kurt Hoffman, Denise Osborne, Jeff Levengood, and Mike Zemba, all of whom are also with U-Haul. So we are here this evening to talk about a property that's roughly 13.3 acres located east of the intersection of 283 and State Road. It's on the plan that is in front of you. You may be familiar with this property as being located sort of back behind the Turkey Hill there and visible from 283. The property is in the Community Business Center zoning district. It's part of really a small area of property in the CBC zone north of 283. And it's currently vacant and unapproved. We are proposing to construct a U-Haul moving and storage center on the site. I'll let Mr. Zemba talk to you in greater detail about the services that would be offered at this facility, but it would consist of self-storage facilities, rental of trucks, as you may be familiar with for moving, storage of recreational vehicles and boats, and then the accessory sale of building supplies, so boxes, packing tape, or moving supplies rather, all the kinds of things that you would need if you were contemplating a move. Some of the commissioners may be familiar with this project. We did previously review this matter with the planning committee. We also reviewed this with staff. So this text amendment that's before you this evening has been in the works for a number of months at this point in time. This proposed use is permitted by right in the CBC zoning district, but not at this scale. So the CBC permits self-storage and motor vehicle leasing, but there are maximum size limitations for buildings within the CBC. And that's really because it's primarily, as the name implies, community-oriented business zoning district. So smaller scale commercial uses. This site obviously doesn't really lend itself to that type of development. Being over 13 acres, it requires something a little bit larger in terms of development. The majority of tracts within the CBC zone for reference are less than 3 acres in size. So in keeping with the existing regulations, the maximum size building that we would be able to construct on this property would be 15,000 square feet for this type of use, which obviously isn't feasible here. There are a number of uses in the CBC district that are listed, all with maximum building sizes. The largest building size that's permitted is 65,000 square feet, and that would be for a grocery store. So what we are proposing to do is to add a new category of use that would be permitted within the CBC's district to go up to that 65,000 square feet. So again, existing permitted use, but allowing it to be expanded to that greater size. We're placing some conditions on that, however. A facility of this size, a 65,000 square foot self-storage facility, would only be permitted on a site that's more than 10 acres and has frontage along a collector street. So very limited in application, practically speaking, probably more or less limited to this property. The text amendment includes some additional clarification in terms of what's permitted within self-storage facilities. We added language to clarify that storage of RVs are permitted in addition to boat and travel trailer storage. And also to clarify that public water and sewer connections do not need to be made within the CBC if they're prohibitively expensive. In this particular instance, there's no water or sewer service north of 283, so we would not be proposing to make those connections. That would require boring under the road. And not only do we not need that for this type of use, but also it's our understanding that's not really something the township wants to see because there's an intent to limit development that's north of 283. So with that, by way of background, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Zemba at this point in time. I'll let him talk to you in a little more detail about U-Haul and the services they're looking to offer at this facility.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Mike Zemba with U-Haul. I'm an area district vice president, take care of Pennsylvania, West Virginia, and Maryland. A little bit of background on U-Haul. We've been in this serving the community since the late 70s on our store on Manheim Pike. But we started in 1945. We started with our independent dealerships in the far west in Washington and continued to evolve and grow as communities needed us. Our founder was from the military out of the Navy. He had a concept that kind of spawned the industry is the self-moving for people who like to do things themselves to get from point A to point B. So through our 77 years now of history, we've learned in the mid to late 70s that moving and storage go hand in hand. So we've been obviously graduating into those components as our customers' needs have demanded and changed for that type of service. So in our particular community here in East Hempfield Township and the Lancaster area, you may see us at a lot of independent dealers around the area that we help support. We're an accessory business for them. We do open company facilities as we have on the Manheim Pike. And again, we've been there since the late 70s, and we've really outgrown the service that the customer's been wanting and needing and demanding. So what we're looking to do on this site is actually expand and add our storage component, as Claudia had explained. And with that, we have our portable storage unit as well, which we call U-Box, very similar to like a portable storage unit that you can ship or store anywhere around the United States or essentially anywhere in the world. And we're still going to keep our component of our truck share program at the facility. We sell boxes and moving supplies to help our customers with whatever needs that you have. We currently do aftermarket trailer hitches and accessories at our current store. We plan on doing that here. And we have a component with the outside boat RV recreational component as well that a lot of customers like and need and fits well with communities for any type of HOAs and things of that nature. And we're proposing to offer a covered version of that, which would be canopied to be able to keep the weather off of, you know, whether it's a motorhome or an RV boat, that type of situation. I can show you a little bit more in detail on the site plan here, give you a little better perspective on what we're proposing. So entering the lot, this would be our portable storage building to house our U-Box. This is our proposed self-storage facility. We're proposing 3 stories here. So as Claudia indicated, to be able to serve the public's needs, this will be all interior climate controlled self-storage in the building. State-of-the-art security, access control, video surveillance. And in the 3-story building would be our showroom that would offer the boxes and moving supplies, a place where the customers could come in. If you'd like to walk in, you can make a reservation, actually rent a vehicle from us in that storage as well. And then on the upper side of the property is where we're proposing exterior drive-up storage as well as the covered slash. A couple of the things that we have, this is of course very conceptual, but we have some things to show you on elevations of what the building would look like on the side. And we also have a component as far as what the buildings can look like. With that, if you don't mind, I have even a little bit more detailed information. I can show you that we probably can kind of pass these around a little bit.
Thank you. Is that the view from 283?
Yes.
Okay.
It would be your view from 283 coming from our expansion. We've done a lot of independent dealerships.
Yeah.
We do a lot of reuse projects. Obviously, buildings in the area, which we've done several. Manheim Pike, Harrisburg, North Pennsylvania. Some cases are car dealerships, like the bowling alleys, grocery stores. Recently, unfortunately, Kmart has not done well, and they've had to sell off a lot of their purchased a little over 200, and half of the reused in our area. We just finished a project in Carlisle and one there. But when we look into a region like this, as far as the expansion from our marketing research, we do a research on how many storerooms we would have in our facility as an example. One would be on the low end, 25 would be on the high end, 25 rooms per 1,000 radius. This particular site is less than 2 rooms per 1,000 people. So that's one of the reasons why we're choosing it. It's great visibility. We believe that it fits well with produce a nice handsome facility that will tie in with what you have already happening in your area with elevation. So we do a lot of brick type work. We have several different actual projects that we've done around the United States, just to get a little bit more of a feel for the type of elevations and roofs that we put on. Again, we do a lot of study and research. The beautiful hospital is right down off of 722. Some of the first this evening as far as the outlook for findings those locations. And we also have in the book traffic impact. Because of course, that's important, obviously, in any community as far as expansion and considering an allotment. And hopefully this text amendment will go well with a low impact. And next to the last page in the pamphlet, we have engineers that actually do our traffic study and impact on comparison businesses that are open similar hours as we are. So we offer a 7-day-a-week operation. Our current hours at our existing facility will match this one, which are 7 to 7, Monday through Thursday, including Saturday, 7 to 8 on Fridays, and then 9 to 5 on Sunday. And we've done a sample on convenience stores, gas stations, things of that nature. Obviously, we're going to be right behind the Turkey Hill, and our average customer transactions coming in and out are 31 trips during the weekday, 53 on the weekend, which is our busiest time. And again, that spans across those hours of operation. And generally, when a customer stores in a storage room, it's an extension of their existing living situation. So most customers store anywhere from 10 months to a year. Typically goes with their living situation. It's a house they're buying or an apartment. So the frequency of coming back, some people visit their storage space one time, and we've had customers who have been with us for 20+ years in the same unit. So some visit seasonal. And we have some pharmaceutical actually.
I also would like to point out that this matter has been reviewed by the Lancaster County Planning Commissions, actually was subject to a staff review. They aren't taking all of their reviews anymore to the full Planning Commission when they're less in depth. And there was a letter that was issued on February 7th recommending approval of the proposal. So we are before the commission tonight to seek your recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors of this text amendment, and we're very happy to answer any questions that you have about the project.
I have a question. I understand that for self-storage units that the draw for your market is usually limited to 5 to 7 miles. So which area do you think you're going to draw from?
Well, good question. Currently, we're serving a lot of families from where we're at on the Anaheim Pike, which.
But that's in a major metropolitan hub area.
Correct. Yeah, so this particular one is your community continues to grow. Where we're at right now in East Hempfield, we believe that we're going to get down to 83 as far as going in towards Lancaster. Most of our thrust is 1 to 3 miles, but we have customers that will store in this area. The research and study, we have some customers that will travel, but the thrust of that is. And good question as well, as far as financially for us. Obviously, doing a ground up, there's a lot of risk for it. Very well established in the community. We're honored to be a part of it. We just want to understand so we can increase the service to our customers.
What are you proposing? How many units?
Up to 1,000 is what we propose.
At the onset, to have 1,000
Yes.
out. Seems a bit large.
And typically, again, that's our risk as well as our business.
Mhm.
Generally, in 3 to 5 years. That's what it is.
Is it going to be elevated?
Yes, it'll be
Okay.
a 3-story elevator. We'll have interior access to your room. We'll have exterior loading dock access if you choose that option. We have the ADA spaces as well.
Two questions. What about the visibility of any storage, like boats or any vehicles or anything that you're storing there? Is there a fence? Is it going to be visible? Because there's certain places around that you can still see, boats and everything else.
Sure, and what we do propose, again, through our site development, we do screen, but with whatever your compliance, be compliant with your use. So we could, we do fencing around it, plant trees, shrubbery, anything to actually screen and make it very environmentally friendly as well. To be able to hide that, if you will. So of course, you'll see on the elevation drawings that we have driving by, you'll see the buildings for sure. And a lot of your outside drive-up self-supports we have proposed on this site is to surround the covered RV, if you will. So of course, we can't completely hide it, but we will do our trees around it.
Then what?
Yeah, so our 283 corridor on the off ramp here at the site. So this particular would be.
You were saying about the grading, so that area there is prone to flooding. So what about the permeability impact that this could have? Because right there is a little swale that goes through.
Sure.
So what's being proposed about?
Hey, John, at this point, all they're looking for is a text amendment to the size of the building. They'll be submitting a full-blown land development plan where we'll look at those technical aspects of that.
Denise,
Yes,
she's in charge of the Manheim Pike?
she is.
Okay, can you tell us about how many trips per day you actually have versus what's in this paper? This says they average 31 on a weekday and 53 on a weekend. How do you handle it over there?
I would say pretty accurate. Our season has not slowed down this year, so it's been a little bit higher.
Yeah, that's what I was interested in. Is it more traffic than this?
And actually, if you don't mind, to speak to that with the storage component. Denise's store does about 100 customers per week in town, already in this area. The vision kind of fits like this with the traffic. Truck share component as well. And they feed off of each other.
And I think the purpose for including the trip generation information is not to say necessarily that's what the generation is going to be for this facility, but just to show when you compare it to other types of commercial users, this is really a pretty low trip generator comparatively.
Light pollution, minimal, like what do you? In that,
Yeah, again, I think that that's something we would provide a photometric plan as part of our land development proposal. But again, the intent would be to comply with the zoning or the subdivision and land development ordinance.
In your opening discussion, Claudia, you talked about the number of parcels that would fall under the same text amendment. Has that been verified by the township? Do you know, Cindy, have we done an inventory to see how many other properties this text amendment would apply to?
We haven't. We will.
Yeah, we
Uh,
can. We did for the
I won't vote for it until you tell me.
I'm
Sorry.
not going to say that there is no other property this could apply to. And frankly, from a zoning perspective, that, really wouldn't be ideal. But it's very limited is the point. You're talking 10 acres or larger, you're talking frontage on a major roadway. So really the purpose of this is to make it a very limited application.
I think we generally looked at this, and there might be the potential for some redevelopment of parcels, but I don't think there's any or very few undeveloped parcels that would fit into that threshold.
I can't think of any off the top of my head, but
I
it's a
mean,
good question.
You have to look
We-
at the zoning map and.
I think the
trace them to find it.
supervisors should be made aware of that when it's presented there. So.
Have that answered before they present to the board.
This is a tract of land that I've planted for the farmer that rents it probably for 20 years, so, or more.
So you're losing business.
Yeah, that's all right. So I'm aware of other potential uses that have tried to come into this property and I mean, as much as I don't like seeing farmland disappear, I think this would be a really low impact use there in relation to some of the other attempts that have come over the last 20 years on this tract. So this was a tract of land that was created when 283 was put in. It actually belonged to the Swore Farm on the other side of 283. It was created there and was zoned, I think, commercial or industrial from the I mean, for many years. So the land all to the east of it and south of it is all agricultural land. So, but yeah, I would support the use and the text amendment. I think it fits for your application, and I think it fits for the site. I'm grateful that it's not potentially going to turn into a retail center that it could have.
Another question about the amendment, the section about the exterior storage for vehicles. So I guess it's a covered exterior storage,
That's correct.
but that wouldn't count towards the building. Is that typical that a covered area doesn't count towards building square footage?
I think our zoning
In others?
defines building as an occupiable space, correct? I don't have that in front of me.
Yeah, they're proposing it's not fully enclosed. It would
Correct.
be open, it would be open on at least
Canopy.
one side. I can't remember if two.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So you just drive into it. There's no doors. There's no doors to it. So that would
Because
not be the same.
We
as a
really
building.
included that to clarify as much as anything else, just in case
Gotcha.
there would be a question down the road, even though we think that's the way it already reads.
Okay, okay, sounds good.
So the entire property would be fenced? Is it secured in that way?
Yes, it's fenced, and we also have infrared security with it, as well as car access.
But I think Mr. Rora asked about the whole property.
Yeah, so
The whole
like,
parcel.
Not the whole property.
so
no, no,
people can enter to
sure.
do business.
Absolutely.
There's no secure gate or anything like that.
No, not coming on, only in the covered RV spaced area, because everything else obviously is, well, not obviously, all of our rooms are as well. So any user that rents from us, security code, you can use a lock if you'd like, you can use a swipe card. You provide your own lock, your own key, and we require this lock just for extra. Whenever you decide to choose electronic access, you need your key. Anytime someone facility, they don't have
A little bit different than your typical self-storage facility, which you usually do see fully fenced and secure with fob access, again, because there would be the truck rental from this location, which is what U-Haul has done elsewhere, as well as the small retail component.
So, and just for the commission or others' information, I mean, there's quite a bit of grade change here. So this property it will be downgrade. There's a steep incline in the hill about right at the property line, probably, or a little beyond that. So from 283, it's going to be very, very visible. But from the from the east and the south, it wouldn't be real visible. Yeah.
And what's between your property and 722? Do you have
We have an easement over that driveway there.
so this is an existing parcel, is that right?
That's correct.
Yeah,
Yes.
there's a short stub access road that goes into Turkey Hill there.
I'm
and
just questioning, well, how we got a property that's landlocked?
yeah, no, it comes out to that stub.
Yes.
But there's a little piece, like Turkey Hill has a block
Yeah, that plan shows it well.
Yeah.
That shows the area of the access easement. It's a shared driveway that would be shared with Turkey Hill,
And
which has
the-
been another reason this site's been difficult to develop over the years, because anything that would be a real high trip generation would be challenging with that access.
And it's, I believe, it's a 60-foot easement.
Sounds right. So- So on Turkey Hill has a, I don't know, what is that? A area behind there that,
Farmer's market.
It's the pizza, the
Yeah, it's a
Randazzo.
pizza
it's a
place
pizza-
now, I
Randazzo's
think, or an
Pizza
Italian
now.
restaurant. Yeah.
but just like their little sort of flag leaf property, there's a section there of farmland that's part of Turkey Hill's property.
That's correct. And I think that may be used for stormwater
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think, or it's part of their plan anyway.
or possibly for
Mm.
The restaurant.
on-lot sewer and those types of things, since there
Yeah.
aren't utilities for that.
The foresight, plan development. The GSI soils. Great suggestion. Come back well.
So Jim, the Turkey Hill site was actually part of this property. The parent track got carved out of the front of it.
Cindy, can you tell us anything about timing for voting on this or approving this? There's no time limit, is there? Yeah, I'm sure the applicant would like to move as quickly as possible, but I'd still like to know what other properties might be impacted by this amendment. So just to let everybody know, if we do take a vote tonight, I'm going to take that into consideration. Is there anybody in the audience that would have any input or questions about the plan? No. Okay, there's no further discussion or questions? I'm waiting for, I'll wait for a motion for whoever, however you want to proceed. But you guys talk about it. I have that concern, but if nobody else, then that's fine.
I took a quick cursory look at the zoning map today and the parcel viewer to just double check how many 10-acre parcels in this zone actually front on a collector. I mean, I didn't delve into it too long, but I found about 6 or 7.
I'm taking a quick look at the zoning map here. I think is the property along Marietta near Running Pump, is that also CBC?
I don't have the map in front of me.
The Nardo property?
Nodding yes.
Nardo
Yeah,
property?
It is.
so I think that
was the
is
biggest
probably-
one.
That's probably larger than this site.
Yeah,
Yeah, it is.
It's a similar use.
yeah, the old the Nardo property.
Yeah, so that would allow them to build a bigger building on that.
Well, and I do want to clarify, that would allow them to build a building for self-storage up to 65,000 square feet. So this does not allow larger buildings anywhere else in the CBC district or for any other type of use, just this particular type of use. So, while there may be other sites where theoretically, either through redevelopment or new construction, they could be developed for this use, I think the likelihood of someone coming in and doing another project of this size in one of those tracks in the township would be relatively small.
Any other larger tracks that you see?
It wasn't that many.
And if there's anything else, it's along Columbia Avenue.
Mhm.
About it. Two other places that I see.
And is there an alternate avenue to go through zoning hearing to get this use exempted to that square footage?
No. I mean, it's very unlikely with the zoning hearing board in this township that they would approve something like that.
I mean, the other alternative, they could build 4 or 5 smaller buildings.
Exactly. We could build numerous smaller buildings. It's just that maximum square footage cap that we're running into here.
So is the footprint about 5,000 square feet then, or what is your footprint? I know you got 3 stories, but what's the footprint?
The gross of our school facility would be about 30,000. That would be the largest of the buildings, which is our right here.
Right.
That encompasses our showroom.
That's the 3-story building. Is that the 3-story building?
Yes.
Okay,
The six,
so that would be 10,000 on a floor or
30.
30, the footprint is 30,000.
Yes, so gross is a little over.
yeah, this is all talking in terms of building footprint. So for multi-story buildings.
And how big is the smaller building?
This one, I believe we have 15,000 or 17,000 gross,
17.
and it's a single story.
That's the one they're gonna have to look at the drainage.
Yeah,
They'll do their work on that.
Yeah, there's no question. We'll have our work cut out for us if this amendment is approved through the land development process to deal with some of those types of issues as part of the site planning.
I guess, Jim, I'm comfortable.
Yeah, I'm comfortable making a motion on this tonight.
Any further discussion? Okay, ready for motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to recommend approval of the Americo Real Estate Company petition to amend the East Hempfield Township zoning ordinance Community Business Center zone as discussed and presented.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Detter, seconded by Mr. Rohr, that we recommend approval of the Americo Real Estate Company petition to amend the East Hempfield Township zoning ordinance, community business center zone as discussed and presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Aye or nay, whatever. So it's 6-1.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You want these for the supervisors?
Yeah, want to reuse those? No. Okay, the next plan for review is Panatone Development Company Incorporated and PDC Northeast, which is a South Chickies rezoning and text amendment.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name's Esh McCombie. I'm also an attorney with McNeese, Wallace and Nurick from up in our Harrisburg office. With me this evening, representing PDC Northeast and Panatone is Ian McDonald to my immediate right. Beside him is Judd Dayton with Panoni, an engineering firm. And then last in the row, but not least, is Jared Neal with TPD, Traffic Planning and Design. The reason we're here this evening is to talk about expanding the Enterprise District from the southern quadrant of the 283 Spooky Nook interchange to include the western quadrant of that interchange. This will allow for infill development consistent with that already permitted along Spooky Nook and along the southern side of 283. It would allow or permit by conditional use the development of a mid-sized warehouse or distribution center in an already designated area for growth. In addition, the use will alleviate delivery delays in the area, create jobs, increase the tax base, and allow for traffic improvements along the road and at the interchange that are already overburdened. Of course, we understand that Not all residents are in favor of change or this change. But the applicant has made efforts to reach out, meet with neighbors and others in the area to address their concerns, hear their concerns, and do what we can. In addition, the applicant remains committed to working with the township and neighbors throughout the development process. To that end, Ian and others from the team met with township staff twice already in the preparation of this amendment, has talked to the neighbors and has talked to even the club down the road who had some questions and concerns about what was going on. I believe it was Mr. Spangler asked earlier, kind of the process on the one that was going before us. Our process is actually even a bit longer than what you just heard, because in addition to going through this amendment process, we'll also, the use is permitted by conditional use. So we'll be back a second time during the conditional use process, and then a third time during subdivision and land development. So there'll be plenty of opportunities for planning commission and the public alike to think about what's going on with this project. But of course, none of the benefits of a project like this are possible without first having the zoning amendment in place. And that's what allows us to move on, continue engineering the plan and continuing those discussions to see what we can do to help out. Cindy, would you please go to page 5 of the narrative if you have control?
I just selected some graphics.
That's all right. I can-
Have. Does it help? What is 5?
It's in the narrative's the 40-page that was submitted with the application. I'll hand these out in the meantime. I like to take notes in the margin, so I always bring paper with me. Talk a little bit about the property. As you can see, it's located in the far western portion of the township, very near the boundaries with Raffo and West Hempfield Township. It's at the western quadrant, as I said, of 283 and Spooky Nook interchange. It consists of 3 parcels, totaling 40 acres. And the property is in the urban growth area, which is intended for a more dense and intense mix of uses under the ordinance and the comp plans. On that point, the township's preserved farmland is generally north of 283. I think that was part of the discussion in the prior presentation. And in fact, the closest reserve, ag reserve farm, is about a mile away, a little under a mile away.
Excuse me, sir. You'll have your chance to talk. Please let the presenter go.
To clarify, I believe in the township. The majority of the property is in the ag holding. Again, I'd refer you to the page cited in the narrative, but I can hand out. These will be helpful. First one that I'm going to hand out shows the existing zoning, and the second is shows the proposed zoning. Again, these are both in the narratives that were submitted.
We can share. Save a couple of. We can share, right?
Maybe.
I'll take this one from you and this one from you.
Oh, this is South Chickies yet.
So as I said on the first one that was handed out, the teal, I'll call it, is the portion of the property on the left there that's in the ag holding. To the east is zoned Community Business Center. That's the area along Spooky Nook where Chickies comes down and kind of loops around there. Currently, the ag holding under the zoning ordinance, this says that, this zone represents staged future growth areas of the township for such time as the township determines there's a need to rezone them to a more intensive use. So the purpose with the ag holding is to acknowledge that at some point, this area is going to need to be developed. It's been held as ag in the short term, but when the board is ready, it's there for development. The eastern portion that's zoned Community Business Center already permits smaller warehouses by right. So that area or that concept is already permitted along this quadrant. As I said, to the north is 283, to the east is the enterprise zone, which is what we seek to extend. You can see that as the darker blue around where the I and the Q are. As you can see, that continues down along 283. And so the idea here is to extend that up to cover the property. And then beyond the property in the next township is also an industrial use, an industrial development. So we would be kind of connecting the chain. The property is the one link in the chain that's not currently zoned industrial or that does not have an industrial use on it. To the south, we have 6 residences and then Chickies before you go into the other township. So with the proposed zoning, as I said, we're proposing to rezone it enterprise, which would allow the warehouse use by conditional use and permit development of the property. We're also proposing to add some frontage and access standards for the heavy industrial, the warehouse use. Those are to address the access point right now that would be unsafe because it's too close to the interchange. It's too close to the off-ramp. Right now, the ordinance requires that heavy industrial have their access directly onto an arterial or a collector street. The collector street being Spooky Nook is right there at the interchange. And so what we are proposing to do is to, in those areas where it would be unsafe, and for properties that are near interchanges, proposing to allow them to come onto another road that's near a collector, but that road would need to be enhanced and improved to collector road standards. The idea being that, arterial roads and collector roads are designed and improved to be able to handle heavier traffic. And so we would propose to do that on Chickies from the access point down to Spooky Nook. In addition, there would be improvements proposed along Spooky Nook and the interchanges to handle the traffic and to deal with some of the existing traffic issues that we see there from the sports complex and those types of things.
Excuse me, one
Yes.
second. Specifically, the portion that you're talking about there, is that the S-shaped red line below the CH? Is that where you're talking about bringing it out?
Yes, so if you pull up the site plan, I think.
I don't want to distract from it. You can
No,
come
no,
back to
that's
it later.
fine. We can jump to the site plan, absolutely. That should be the 4th page, I'm gonna guess, in the PDF. My memory is correct. Thank you.
This piece here.
The site
No.
plan's pretty straightforward, I think. You can see just to kind of orient to the north is 283 along the top there. The off-ramp coming down onto Spooky Nook. As you continue south and then westward, you're on South Chickies, and that takes you out and towards the other townships. The proposed warehouse that's on there is just under 400,000 square feet as a warehouse distribution center. Our intent is, as I kind of referenced earlier, is to limit the effect on residents to the south as much as we can. And so that's why you see all of the truck docks to the north along 283 as opposed to being along the south. And the trailer and passenger vehicle parking being located to the east and west of the building. The idea there is trying to keep as much on-site traffic away from the residences as possible. In addition, only the access point to the east, the one near the interchange, is going to be designed to accommodate truck traffic. So they would be limited to coming in and off over by the interchange, as opposed to the access point to the west, which will be designed only to handle passenger vehicles, employees coming in and out. It's also designed so that the building is at least 100 feet from all property lines. And then the dark line that kind of goes around those properties is an area of enhanced vegetation and buffer strip. There's some mature vegetation there already, but the plan would be to enhance that area with additional vegetation and screening for those residents. And then lastly, as I mentioned, portions of South Chickies Road going over to the interchange would be improved to better handle the traffic from the proposed use and some of the other existing uses where some of that backup and concerns exist already. I'm certainly not a city planner, but the narrative includes several points about why the proposed amendments consistent with the comp plans, consistent with good planning. And, you know, for those reasons and the others addressed earlier in my presentation in the narrative, we're asking that you recommend approval of the rezoning, which would allow us then to go into the conditional use phase where there'll be more detailed discussions before land development. Are there any questions from the Planning Commission?
Maximum building height in the enterprise zone is 60 feet. What's the proposed building height?
Go ahead.
So we do build Class A facilities, and usually they're designed around, you know, warehousing, so it's really storage of goods inside. What we build is 40-foot clear. If you think of your pitch of your roof, even what appears to be a flat roof has some pitch to it, and so typically they're roughly about 50 feet tall.
Thanks.
See, on the zoning exhibit you have here, there's like a sliver of a property to the west, right along the municipal boundary. Is that an adjacent owner or is that also owned by?
That property is actually owned by the property on the other side of Chickies Creek. It's bisected by the creek there. It's in, I think, mostly in the floodplain.
Changed. Yeah.
Completely.
Dan?
Thank you.
It's probably, yeah, I think it's this blues.
Okay, yeah, all right. Isn't there a Chickies Creek feeder that runs through the western side of the property?
A Chickies Creek feeder that runs through the western side of the property?
Yeah, kind of these snakes down through.
No, there isn't. There's no wetlands on site. There's no streams on site. There's no creeks on site. Am I understanding your question correctly?
I thought there was a stream feeder that came through that area.
Floodway?
A stream feeder into
No.
South Chickies, into the Chickies Creek.
There's not. I mean, we had a ECS Mid-Atlantic that did a, you know,
Okay.
kind of full
I'm a
on.
member of the Lancaster Leader Cross, which is
Oh,
just
yeah.
down,
Okay, no, so I met with them.
down South.
I was
Chickies, and-
there, I was there last night and just met with the president and some other folks. And, you know, they certainly took the picture off the wall of the flood and said, you know, what we're concerned about is truck traffic, because I believe the building's
Oh,
about
yeah.
6 feet off of South Chickies. And the other is flooding. So naturally, I think part of, you know,
what we'll have to do as part of the approval process, and what the process really looks like for us is we will have stormwater management plans before you in the future. But that's certainly something we will be addressing. It's a really neat venue, by the way.
I think that's kind of a good point while there's a pause. I think to Mr. Detter's point earlier, this is, we're asking about the rezoning right now.
Yeah.
Stormwater, all of those items will be addressed in due course. But we can't move on to getting that more sophisticated engineering and that analysis until we get past the initial zoning hurdle.
Go ahead. I was going to ask a question. So if it was rezoned, but we didn't change the text of the zoning, what would that mean for your plan?
It means we couldn't get access. I mean, I don't know how you would rezone it and have a plan that connected to Spooky Nook, because there's no, it wouldn't be safe.
You
It's just too
couldn't
close to the-
bring your access in where it is. And because Chickies isn't on an arterial, you couldn't come in the other part of Chickies, yeah.
Are you saying to come in between Chickies and the off-ramp?
Right, you wouldn't have enough distance.
No.
PennDOT wouldn't allow that.
So going back to your zoning maps, then all the property that you said is already zoned that way to the east. How will they get out to a street? Because their only access would be to.
This is
Spooky
just
Nook too.
for that amendment, text amendment portion applies only to heavy industrial for warehouses. It does not apply to all uses in the zoning district.
Okay,
It only applies to the ones that have truck traffic that you're trying to get to an interchange as quickly as possible.
Okay.
What improvements to the existing intersections are you anticipating, since you have Mr. Neal
with
here?
Mr.
and
Neal here?
Not that he's
Yeah.
here last
Yeah,
but
well,
not least, but he's
Yeah.
here, so you obviously have some idea of what some of those improvements may be.
we do, and he can go into that. Maybe I'll start with a little bit of the process of how we got there. We did meet with staff and surprise, what they tell you is, well, you've got a problem at this interchange. The interchange backs up and it's not functioning properly. And there's just too much traffic. And for us, that's where I think our interests are aligned, right? If we're about traffic flow, we're about goods. Like the reason we're here is because people order stuff online, they want it in 3 days. If we're here because of, some acceleration due to the pandemic, because, people didn't want to be without toilet paper, right? So there's a need for all these goods, and there's a need for all these goods quickly. So the ability to get goods in and out is important to us. It's important to any user that's going to use this facility. And so we knew that there was going to be some offsite improvements. Lucky for our asset class, that we are on a relative basis, a low traffic use relative to the size of what we build. On a square foot by square foot basis, we will generate less traffic than single family homes, retail, other commercial developments. And so we had heard that, Jared had looked at this intersection quite a bit, had thoughts and ideas, and I know now is about the time where I shut up and let him speak, and he knows more about it than I do.
Thank you, Ian. Appreciate that. Jared Neal with Traffic Planning and Design. Yeah, I've had the opportunity to look at this corridor for probably about 10 years now. So I've done some analysis, looked at the ramps, the intersections as they go up and down Spooky Nook. And everything that Ian said is exactly correct. The existing signals have been met at those ramps for years. Just the question was always how and what else is happening. I've actually looked at this piece of property for various different uses. And just to kind of echo what Ian said, this is the trip generation that this product is developing is substantially less than anything that I've ever looked at. We're talking by a massive amounts. I'm actually holding a study that was previously done that shows the daily trips being in the thousands, whereas this is a fraction of that for the day. So to answer your question, what are we looking at? And we did do some due diligence. We met with staff and talked about what the scope of this study should look like. We submitted a traffic study in November and had their engineer review it. From that, we made some minor revisions to it. And I think we have a fairly clean study very, very early on in the process, but we're already digging into this to look to understand what the magnitude of these improvements might look like. So if we start at Spooky Nook and Chickies Road, we did look at signal warrants there just to check, hey, is there an opportunity that something needs to be done? Warrants aren't met, but we are looking at an improvement there. So as you travel south on Spooky Nook Road, probably a right turn lane to come into Chickies to, again, just to facilitate and mitigate any added traffic due to the warehouse.
For those that don't know, explain what warrant means and how that applies with PennDOT.
Certainly. So as we evaluate traffic studies, maybe I'll take a step back and we start by just looking at how the existing intersections function. From there, we add volume on top of that to kind of project out what the area will look like without the development at a certain year. And then we compare that to the same year with what the development will look like, or what the traffic will look like with the development. So it kind of gives us an apples to apples comparison. As part of that, PennDOT and a lot of township ordinance want to look at capacity, which is simply how many cars can we fit through an intersection. That's one thing. Queuing, our car's going to stack up and how far. And another thing is warrants, which could be a turn lane warrant, a left turn lane or a right turn lane, or signal warrants. So those are some of the high level improvements that we look at. So to Mr. McCombie's point, what is a warrant for here? So the southbound right turn lane is what we envision being installed. So if you get off the off ramp, head south on Spooky Nook. As you make that right onto Chickies, we'd be installing the right turn lane there. As we travel farther to the north, the eastbound ramp, again, I had indicated that we've looked at these many times. Signals have been warranted here. So the big improvement there would be a traffic light. But just given the geometric configuration of that intersection, very difficult to put a traffic light there without any type of improvements. So we'd be looking at shifting that ramp to a line to come to a cleaner four-way intersection. And then again, with that, we'd be looking at a northbound right turn lane onto the eastbound ramp. So a lot of reconfiguration is what we're anticipating at that ramp. And then again, as we travel farther to the north on the, excuse me, on the westbound ramps, again, a lot of the same thing. That on-ramp has a really, really sharp skew to it. That, again, is going to need to be realigned. Another traffic signal installed, and again, a right turn lane there, again, with the traffic signal. So those are high level. It's just at the planning phase now. That the current study was submitted mid-January, still under review. But those are, I think, generally what you could anticipate in terms of improvements.
Thank you.
Zoning can't be conditioned on that.
Right. Sorry, I was just questioning whether that was considered like, I thought I'd heard that we couldn't require off-site improvements. Is that true?
These would not be the township requiring them. These would be improvements being offered by a property owner to benefit their business in part. There would obviously be benefits to the township out of it.
Right.
But at the end of the day, as Ian was saying, for the people that use these facilities, they need intersections that function properly, and the way they function right now are insufficient.
Yeah, so when we rezone something, we can't place conditions on the rezoning. So we couldn't say, we'll rezone this if they agree to put these intersections in. You can't do that.
Practically speaking, this discussion is probably happening a little early.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
But we, wanted it to be out there and to be known that, the intent's not to come in, put a warehouse, add truck traffic to the existing problem of traffic that's already there and walk away. That's not going to fly, and the traffic impact studies and conclusions coming out of that wouldn't allow it. And so from Ian's perspective, it's needed for their business to be able to operate and function. And from the township's perspective, you've got other ordinances, just not this part of the process that involves some more of that stuff.
And on the flip side, on zoning, we can't count on the applicant being the applicant. It could be somebody else that builds on this site. So, you say you have low traffic use. Maybe it gets rezoned and sold to somebody else and they've got a higher warehouse use. So we have to take that into consideration too. But
You do.
But
think
I
the
do
one-
appreciate the information itself.
I think the one thing, or not the one thing, one of the things that the township has in its favor and that offers some protection on something like that is that, given the configuration of the property, the Chickies Spooky Nook intersection and the interchange, or the first interchange here to the south at least, are probably considered on-site improvements because they abut the property. And so you can require improvements on the on-site improvements. It's the off-site where, it needs to be something that's just being offered because they need it. So point being, if you were to make a change, it would still be protected in that way. That's not to say, though, that already the two lots that are along Spooky Nook and Chickies can have, much more intense uses than what's already there anyways under the existing zoning.
I'd also add that the text amendment portion of the application is part of the industrial heavy, which requires a conditional use application back to the planning commission, ultimately to the board of supervisors. So there's another step there where the supervisors can add conditions to their application for this project.
That would mean that both of these would have to be approved, the rezoning
That
and
is
the
correct.
text amendment. Not
That
just
is
one
correct.
or the other, not just the text, not just the rezoning.
That is correct.
It's in our case, a three-step process: rezoning, coming back here for conditional use, into the board for conditional use approval, which is another public hearing, and then going into subdivision and land development. So this is just the very beginning of what would be a long relationship with the planning commission and several meetings.
And the conditional use is where you can add a lot of conditions that make sense for the safety of the residents. So what we got to consider is a rezoning of a tract that's mostly ag holding at this point. And the text amendment.
Okay. Ian, did we interrupt your presentation or do you have more? Do you have more or are you done?
I'm Ash, this is Ian.
Or
but
I'm sorry.
I'm done. I'm
Sorry.
happy to answer to Ian. It's fine.
Hey, you. I'm sorry. So other questions or areas to discuss from the commission?
I just wanted to ask one question. As far as the 6 adjoining residential neighbors, have you spoken to all of them or have made contact with all of them, or?
I can address this. I've made contact with 5 of them. I've called the 6th, texted, sent letters. I haven't received a response. And I think, just putting it out there, I mean, ideally, we would be able to, and what I did over the summer was I tried to figure out a way to buy all of them. I think in an ideal world, that would probably be the path we pick. But it is one of those situations that it is what it is. To be able to afford all those homes, to buy them out, I need additional square footage to be able to lease. And so I need to be able to build a bigger building. So it's really it was either an all or none proposal. I think 4 were willing to sell, came to terms, but ultimately there's two that held out. One I couldn't get a hold of and the other simply just, the answer is no. And no isn't a 4-letter word. I told her that, and it's true. But, I think in a perfect world, we'd have them all, but it just didn't work out.
Okay, at this point, I will open up the podium or the microphone for comments from the audience. The way this will work is I'll just go across the room, and if you're interested, let me know. We do need you to sign a piece of paper up here giving us your name and address, and you're on. So anybody on the left side here would like to speak?
Hello, my name's Don Yo. I live at 473 South Chickies. I'll put it out there. I was one of the people, I was go along with this when they proposed it, but if we're not all selling, I'm really not good with this because of the impact. It's gonna hurt, the animal life, everything that we bought. The reason we bought here was to be out in the country. There's another problem over there is the water situation. I myself, our well is a very low recovery well, and I'm concerned what's going to happen when this happens and my well goes dry. There's no public water, there's no public sewer out there. We all have septic tanks and wells. My well recovers 20 gallons an hour. If I do 3 loads of wash a day, I might not get a shower that night. And you build this, washing trucks, everybody here is probably going to lose their water. And there's a lot of other things, but I'll let those people talk about that. That's all I.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Young. If you have something that would help the situation.
Yeah, we did reach an agreement with the Water Authority. We're going to bring public water to the site and pay for it as part of our offsites.
Okay.
And I'd be happy to figure out a way to connect. And, I don't know, it's just, you invited me into your home. I thought you were great. And, I understand everything that's happening. I just wish it would have worked out differently, but we can get water to them.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else on the left side? Okay, moving across to the right.
I think there is somebody over there.
Oh, I thought she passed. I thought you.
She kind of bounced back.
Okay. My name is Dorothy Roth. I live at 423 South Hickey Road. And yes, Ian, I'm the one that said no. And the reason is, my husband and I bought this property, and again, like Mr. Yo said, because we came from farm country to begin with. And for us, the property is our home place. It goes to our son after I pass. It's already in the will for that. And I did have some concerns, and I see they did change some things here, because my main concern was, the wear and tear of the road, the effect that, the trucks would have on the air quality, the effects that would occur to the environment, because we find white-tailed deer in our backyards and a red fox pair that seems to enjoy the pheasant, vegetation that she has her kits there in breeding season. And it's just a matter, traffic wise, when the leader cross says something, it's okay. If there's a wreck accident on 283, South Chickies is the pass through from Espenshade to Spooky Nook, and then it backs up bumper to bumper because everybody's trying to make a left-hand turn onto Spooky Nook, and they don't put a fire up there. So, we got a lot of Amish that use the road as well. And I guess I'm just this one that this is my home. We bought the place, we enjoyed it, and it's our home place. And so what if you're going to put a building out back? It's still my house.
Understand.
Okay?
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you. Can you speak closer to the,
Reedley, I live at 487 South Chickies. We're on the end unit. Be right next to the entrance. My concerns are traffic on South Chickies Road, noise, light, and air pollution, and the value of our houses going down. There's a reason why this property hasn't been developed yet, and I just think it's a bad idea. 100 feet behind your houses doesn't seem like, it's a lot of area. It could be pushed back more. That's all.
okay, thank you. Okay. I'll pass to the right side now. Anybody on the right side?
John, is that your land on the other side of the road? How far up does your farm come?
Sold to, it goes right to Bill. You're completely correct. When you drive down that line, south, it's the farmland on the right side and it's the inland development on the other side. Seems to be a difference of opinion in the track for future for townships. I own Go Native Tree Farm. I wish I had a little red laser pointer, but currently I lease part of the farm that's right across Chickies Road from there. And my sister lives in at Fort, five. Yeah, I bet she's the one that didn't answer your letter.
Okay,
And
do you have some comments?
Yeah, I
Okay,
absolutely
let's go.
do. It's a hillside and a hilltop.
We have a pointer for you. We have a pointer for you.
A lot faster and more clear if something like that was available.
Oh, you got one?
Bet you guys didn't pull it out sooner. All right. The very top of the hill's right here.
Would you mind turning around on that one?
Oh, I'm sorry. All right. I'm an advanced degree chemical engineer. I'm a licensed engineer in Pennsylvania, if I paid my dues lately. I have a background in chemistry, advanced degree work in geochemistry and geology. For that matter, I have 23 patents, but this is a hill top, and it slopes down to the creek towards the towards the west, mostly towards the west. The elevation difference between the creek and the top of the hill is 120 feet, something like that. It's a decent amount. My father liked to drive tricycle tractors. He rolled tractors on this hillside at least twice in his life. He's lucky he didn't get killed. But because, is this warehouse all going to be on one level? One concrete level? If I look at my calculations right, you're going to have to blast down 30 or 40 feet here, and you're going to have to build it up 30 feet here to be able to get that whole thing on one level. That means you're going to be blasting down, and there's going to be a cliff behind these people's houses if that's what's going to happen, or at least at this end. This is the top of the anticline. If you walk on the railroad just over here, you'll see that the rock goes like this, and the hilltop is here too. So the surface topography matches the geology bedding underneath. And this is Cambrian Conococheague limestone, to be specific. And it's a lot of this land in Lancaster County is limestone, but this particular band has thin layers of shale and sandstone in it. And that's why some of these folks have run into poor water from their wells, because limestone's quite porous. Water just goes right through it. But when there's thin sandstone or shale beds, those are aquicludes. They'll preclude water from being able to get through. And so water tends to shed off the top here. And because of that, I suppose that's why no streams ever cut their way down to the creek here. But there's an intermittent stream on this hillside, and it can be on one or both sides of Chickies Road. But there's a spring seep down here that's right on the edge of their property that you'll see reptiles and amphibians, and then that's tadpoles in there and that sort of thing in the springtime. This right here at the top of the hill, that's one thing I thought I should point out. There's about a 50-foot diameter by no more than 5 foot deep, shallow, wide sinkhole. My father and the family who owned this before him back in the 60s and all the way back in the 1800s was the Pfeiffer family. They pushed a lot of earth around and filled that in enough so they could farm right through it. But if you're going to be excavating right in here, that's right under the top of the anticline, the cap of it. You might hit cave there. If you're going to be, doing drilling or, that sort of thing and planning for excavating, if you hit something like that, you might kill somebody, might get killed or hurt. That happened over at Rohr's True Value Hardware over on Columbia Avenue in 1979. It broke through, a shale layer into limestone, or in this case, vintage dolomite, and they almost lost a bulldozer. It's just something to be aware of. Other than that, I guess my last comment is this is a fairly steep hillside right here, and I think there's a little quarry in here where they quarried out rock for the Pfeiffer farm, and they built it in the late 1700s. About 50 years ago, my father bought bigger farm equipment and bigger plows, and we farmed this. Howard Pfeiffer got too old, and this is going back into the 60s and early 70s. When Dad came in this field with the new plows, the bigger equipment, there were some fence rows and big trees in here. There was a 10 or 12 foot diameter sycamore tree. They took all that out, but the hillside, when you can walk down here, it goes downhill a little bit and then it goes up, and then you hit a little flat up here before you get to the highway. On that hillside there, between 50 and 55 years ago, when he came in there with the bigger equipment, there were two oval areas that were about 2 feet wide and maybe 6 feet long that were like charcoal. I don't know if they were old burn sites or if that's how the Indians buried their people, but this is a Chickie Salunga. and they lived there. We picked up tons of arrowheads over the years in the fields, but I don't think the building isn't right in that area, but that hillside might be worth looking at and scraping a little bit. If you're going to go in there with moving equipment, I figured you ought to be aware of it. I
Okay.
saw it.
Okay. Thanks for your
Hope it
comments.
helps.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure they'll take that into consideration. Over here.
All my life.
All right, does anybody else in the audience have any comments, input? Okay. There's nobody on Zoom, is there? Cindy?
No.
Okay,
There is, but there's no comments.
okay. Okay, once again, any further discussion from the commission? If not, then we need a motion on the rezoning and the text amendment, please. And I'm assuming that will be included in one motion. Hearing none, I will make a motion that we recommend approval of the PDC Northeast and Panattoni Development Company petition to rezone the property from Community Business Center and agricultural holding zones to enterprise zone and amend the zoning ordinance as discussed and presented.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, we have a motion by Mr. Fullerton, second by Mr. Detter, that we recommend approval of the rezoning request and text amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? So that would appear to be unanimous, 7-0.
Thank you very
you.
much. We appreciate your time and be able to better address some of the residents' concerns as we continue through the process. So thank you for allowing
Okay,
us to.
thanks for your help.
See you soon.
Same offer goes. Do you want any of these pretty pictures back for the supervisors?
I'm sorry?
You want any of these pretty pictures back for the supervisors?
I can take them and if you don't want them, recycle them.
Well, you might be able to reuse them. You'll be discussing with supervisors.
Put over one of them, so. I wrote on
You
some of
you
them.
got some of them, okay.
Yeah.
Good, how are you?
I'm not gonna give my work away for free. I'm gonna keep them. Yeah, I mean, means and methods and how they do it's on them, as long as it meets the Southbound.
I think they'll be able to do it with that site. So.
All right, Cindy, you want to tell us about any new plans coming through?
You have my manager's report from the last meeting of the Board of Supervisors. We have the ordinance, which is now in draft form. We're waiting to get that back from the attorney, which is going to be then in ordinance form. And as soon as I get that, I will forward it out to you so you have time to read it before it actually comes before you. You saw Schreiber's Pediatrics tonight, the U-Haul and the South Chickies. There's information there about a building department report, some significant project in building permit, some applications that were approved. The Wendy's on State Road, I don't know if we talked about that or not. Okay, that's something that's kind of out there. They're working on a text amendment to allow a Wendy's to be placed next, south of what is now going to be the 7-Eleven store on State Road.
South or north?
North, sorry.
of it, yeah.
Bad directions. Yeah, north side. So we're still waiting for that to come back. It's been reviewed by the engineer and our attorney, and they're still working on the text amendment draft, so I'm not sure what that's going to look like at this point. The sheets on, that's a new project for us as well, Flory Mill and Roystown Road. There's a sheet proposed on that intersection. The
Where?
northeast corner,
Northeast corner.
northeast corner.
Oh,
Is that
Two
where that
There's
DL Landis Trucking was at one time?
On the
the
others.
tractor, the Ford New Holland.
Oh, that
Looks like-
side, okay.
so it's like diagonal from the gas
Flory
station.
Mill and Morristown, it would sit in the northeast corner.
Wow, is that big enough?
There's two parcels. The one parcel by itself would not be, but they're adding two of them together.
Okay.
Well, actually, the one was a, like, business copy center.
But that's the other side of the road. This is.
Oh,
where
that's
the-
north
where
of
that Ford.
North of this.
Yeah, there was
trailer
a
place.
farm
Oh, okay.
supply place. I
Yeah.
think they had fertilizer and a few other things.
They
years
would
ago.
have, they would access on to Flory Mill and on to Roarstown. It would be that corner.
Have that whole corner.
Okay. That's amazing.
That's
Sheets.
what they're hoping.
Not that far from their
2
other
miles from
sheets.
The
huh?
other one. That's amazing.
It's like our Turkey Hill discussions used to be when they
Yeah.
come in, we're like, wow, you're close.
The store that they presented in sketch plan was basically identical to what was just developed on State Road.
Wow.
Footprint would be almost identical.
Don't bring that next time.
We'll blur it out.
Says sheets.
His coffee-
His coffee cup.
Green sheet? Oh, okay.
It's the mega cup.
Board of Supervisors also, I'm sorry, also adopted the ordinance that you had before you for the conditional use, the permitted uses and the special exceptions. What they did make some amendments. They took out, they addressed pretty much your concerns, Julie. They removed, actually, and Josh's, they removed the junkyard, they removed the one or more, they took that away. They also then went back to the accessory dwelling, it said rental units, they took the word rental away and now it just says dwelling units. So if somebody wanted to just live in the house without paying rent, this would capture that. And then the last thing was the motor vehicle sales, they took the whole section out regarding 60 days and the 20 feet condition. So that's gone, but that was actually adopted then.
There's other sections within the township ordinance that sort of would be duplicated by that. So it was felt that that wasn't necessary to be in this section because it was already covered somewhere else. There already are regulations regarding vehicles and their condition on properties.
Yeah, I think part of that discussion also had to do with the fact that there's no definition of a junkyard in the township. So if somebody wanted to bring in a business and do something, we couldn't say, no, that's a junkyard, you're not allowed to do it because there's no definition for junkyard.
Yeah, but in looking through, I don't think it was all like under excluded uses or. I don't think
It was not defined, first of all.
Correct.
Correct. And if it's not defined, it technically could go into any of the zones then because it's a use not
That was
provided
kind
for
of
and defined.
crux behind the whole thing is we need to be ahead of whatever somebody wants to do something.
I get that,
I know.
that thought of it, but I think there's potential to.
Yeah, as they mentioned, there are a couple provisions in there already about parking or unlicensed, whatever, storage and things like that. And it's certainly not the intention of people to be going out saying that your car doesn't, it's taking too long for you to repair your car, so we're gonna.
And I get that. I just kind of viewed that as doubling down on something that I thought was problematic.
Okay.
Yeah.
Again, I'm glad you brought it up and obviously it's made a difference in the final product, so appreciate it.
Thanks, Julie.
Question on something we were talking about earlier. Conditional use, that doesn't come to us anymore, does it? That goes right to the supervisors? In the ordinance now? I was thinking conditional use. We used to do a fair amount. I think they go straight to the
Goes straight to the
supervisors. So-
supervisors, yes.
So they won't be before us for the conditional use.
But for the land development plan, they would.
Yeah.
be.
So
They used to come before us.
They did, yeah.
Is there any
I like
opportunity
that.
for us to give any input, for instance? if, 3 months from now, they come in for conditional use.
I mean, we could go to the supervisors meeting,
Sure.
but yeah,
I
that
could,
was
but
one
it-
of the things in the last
I'm
ordinance I
just-
remembered. They wanted to sort of shorten that process a little.
Maybe we didn't put enough conditions on them, so they decided they didn't need us. I don't know. Okay, sorry, is that the end?
I digress.
And on Zoom, there's no public comment. from
Nobody
anybody
on.
else. Okay. Okay. No further business. Meeting is adjourned. See you all in March.
I will not be here in March.
Oh, okay.
New York City.
Thanks for letting us know. That's one thing, I don't think I mentioned, especially to the new folks. If you know you're not going to be here, like tonight, if you know you're not going to be around in March, it would be good to just to let us know so we can be on the lookout for absentees. So like Brent just said, he's not going to be here in March.
East
So.
Lampeter. One of the two places. I was both places the same morning. Yeah.
All right, Dan.